People, my African people, the good conscience people in the world, I say you are welcome. This is M Special, a Biafran agitating for Biafra freedom, believing that this year we'll see our exit from Nigeria. Thank God for today. Another weekend has come. We are healthy and happy in the land of the living, despite what is going around us, despite the news flying everywhere. The Lord has been always faithful, and I say to him be all the glory. Please, if you have not subscribed to my channel, this is M Special, do me a favor to subscribe. I do upload video every day since the lockdown. Okay? So you are welcome. This afternoon, I want to speak about the period we are into. The good, the bad, the ugly. Okay, and really there is no good. The only good is that we are alive, healthy, and pushing on. We keep pushing as Africans. I want to discuss about my continent in general this very moment, the happenings that has been unfolding. We knew that in America presently there has been rioting and destruction of properties around America because of the loss of one of our own, and I want to talk about it. We must not forget that as African, the fight we are into globally is not just a physical fight, it's a spiritual fight. For the Bible says, we wrestle not against flesh and body, but against principalities and powers of darknesses in the highest places. And this time is a very big time for us to concentrate spiritually, to understand the time we are into, so that we don't beat about the bush or fight to miss. Very crucial, very, very crucial we understand this. I'm saying this because truly we are not happy we lost our own in America. But the way the thing has blown bizarre is another state of concern for me as a person. This is my opinion, my own personal opinion. We as Africans must learn how to play by the rule, no matter what happens, so that we don't fight to lose, we fight to win. Because in the current state that we are, Africa is the only continent that's supposed to bring their head up. Every other place is down. But Africa has also joined the downside because of the borrowing of our presidencies. So was this period supposed to be a period where we will come together to know how we will utilize this time to grow ourselves and to come out of perpetual enslavement and colonialism that we are under? Because truly Africa is not free. I and you know. And instead of that happening, we have an obstruction. We have to think deep. We have to think spiritual. I am saying this because while that is going on, did you know that another big time thing is going on against Africa from the divided states? Did you know that the African Development Bank president by the name Mr. AKINWUMI AYODEJI ADESINA they are planning to remove him? Did you know? Why are they planning to remove him? We call this bank African Development Bank. But do you know that the divided states, both the America, the Europeans, that they are inside that bank? Is it proper? Is it proper? These are the things we should be looking into. Is it proper that they are inside our African Development Bank? Is that proper? Does it sound real? Does it sound cool? It is not proper. And not only that, the person that Adesina is replacing was removed because he wants to see Africa grow. And the same case now as I'm talking to you is being applied to Mr. Adesina. Why? Because Africa is growing economically in a pace that they don't want. And Mr. Adesina is under investigation. They couldn't find or lay hand on anything to investigate him. And now they are calling for him to go out development bank. So in this video, I am calling on all African presidents to say no to this. It's time we must stand up for ourselves. If all African presidents come up and reject this, no matter the money you are owing, no matter the borrowing, it will be a very big step ahead. We must learn how to talk together as a people. This is the time and the only time to do so. I'm calling on all African presidents to reject and refuse to see this happen. That this man will be taken away. The African Development Bank is not supposed to be dictated by foreigners. It is African Development Bank. If anybody don't like it, let them take their money out of that bank and we sustain ourselves, because that name is African Development Bank. So we must rise up to the task to defend ourselves, because logically it does not have any base that it is called African Development Bank, and people from outside African continent, the same people oppressing us, are the people telling us who to be there. The time is over for us to allow this. They dictate to us who will be the presidents of African countries. They will bring the puppies that will listen to them, just like my Biafran people are suffering with the Fulanis currently, and all our governors are being appointed by the Fulani, and they become Fulani puppies. Even they have no mouths, even when their own children or wives are being molested, because they have become the puppies. They take the position to become puppies to their masters. It is time for Africa to say no to that. It is time for Africa also to probe any responsible or professional African that died anywhere in the world. It is time for Africans to stand up to probe that, because those are the tools that they use against Africa. If we don't do this, while we are bringing ourselves together as one continent and one people, we will not go far. So I am using this video to call on African presidents to reject and refuse that to see this happen, that Mr. Adesina will be removed as the president of African Development Bank. Watch this video and you will understand exactly what I am saying. This was his video way back 2018, 2 years, almost 2 years this month. And the speed of the progress that he is making economically in African continent, they are not satisfied. Because don't forget, for Africa to grow means for them to fall, and they don't want to fall. And do you want to continue to be in slavery in your own thing? Continue to dig your gold and refine it and bring it back to you? Continue to take your oil and go and bring it back to you? How long will we live like this? This is the time for us to stand up for our future generation. Watch this video and you will understand what I am saying as Africans. And for my African people in America, please, I want you people to take things more gently, because I am not saying that Donald Trump is the best president, but you must not forget that what you are passing through and what you are suffering from time immemorial in America is the masterpiece and plan of the Democrats. We must not let anybody fool us, but we must grow to make good use of every opportunity that we have in their midst, because none of them is good for us. Let us be more wise and let us be more articulating. So watch this video and get what I am saying about the African Development Bank and Mr. Adesina and the divided states wanting to remove him.
And therefore, we must be thinking of how to help Africa to unlock this massive amount of potential to lead to a lot of wealth for a lot of its people. So we have a very distinguished delegation here. I'm here. Several African presidents are here. And we're making the case for Africa, and we will make it very strong to all the investors.
Now, just last week, the African Development Bank released the African Economic Outlook report, with Africa growing at 4%, just over 4%, 4.1% to be precise, for 2018 and 2019. Is that optimistic, and what are the risks to the downside?
Well, first and foremost, I think the fact that Africa's economy is actually running back is very good news, because remember that African economies went down. We've grown 5% for quite a long time, but it went to 2.2% in 2016. So we're back to 3.6% last year, and now this year we're going to 4.1%, and we project that it will rise to 4.2% or even higher by next year. I think the key things to keep in mind is that why this is happening. It's happening because the global economic environment is improving, and secondly, because the commodity prices have recovered to a great part, and also because of domestic demand. There's a lot of rising domestic demand for import substitution across African economies, and a lot of countries' agriculture is actually doing well. So this is actually quite good. But however, I don't believe that 4.1% is what we need to drive down poverty on the continent. I think the continent needs to grow at double-digit GDP growth rates, because the amount of poverty we have is still very, very high. And so people don't eat GDP, of course, so you've got to make sure that things have impact on the lives of people. So I do think that where the focus should be is, how do we get growth that is inclusive, growth that would take hundreds of millions of people out of poverty, and how do we make sure that we reduce the level of inequality that we actually have, because Africa today is still the second in terms of income inequality in the world. And we have a lot of fragility, of course, because a lot of people are left behind, in particular the young people. And so I have said, with the population of young people that we have today, well over 320 million people, that means that the African Development Bank, my number one constituency right now, is actually the youth, because we have to create a lot of jobs for them. It makes no sense to me, and it breaks my heart to see young people fall off, desperate for life, gasping for air in the Mediterranean Sea. That's not the future Africa needs, and that's why we've got to make sure that we push for structural transformation of Africa's economy, drive a lot of investments in, but make sure whatever we do, we take the hundreds of millions of our people out of poverty and create massive amount of jobs for our youth.
And now, the economic report also refers to the infrastructure funding gap, which has increased to between 130 and 170 billion US dollars. How are we going to capture the funding needed to create, as you say, the right infrastructure for inclusive growth?
First and foremost, we used to say that the amount of infrastructure gap in Africa was roughly $50 to $60 billion a year. But that was because we were just talking more generally. The high fives that we launched at the African Development Bank to make sure that Africa has universal access to electricity, and also that we transform agriculture completely and make Africa totally self-sufficient in food and become a very competitive exporter of food, means that the infrastructure for that also has to change. We released our Africa Economic Outlook report last week. And what we said was that the amount of infrastructure financing needed is anything between $100 to $170 billion a year. But that leaves you a gap of anything between $68 to $108 billion. And so the question is, how are we going to make sure that we close that gap? First is that I think that Africa should look inside. I think Africa has a lot of resources. Africa may have a lot of poor people, but Africa is not a poor continent by any chance at all. We have massive amount of funds that are available in terms of the sovereign wealth funds, the pension funds, and also the institutional investors. If you take a look at all of that together, in 2012 alone, it was roughly about $670 billion. But by 2020, that's going to go to roughly $1.9 trillion. So which means that what we've got to do is, how do we tap that and make sure that it go into investment in critically needed infrastructure? And what the African Development Bank is doing is actually we're launching a new forum that is called the Africa Investment Forum. And the key to that is we want the global pension funds and the sovereign wealth funds and other institutional investors to come to Africa, because that's where the infrastructure needs, and that's where the rate of return is actually much higher. And so what we're doing that's going to be very different. The forum is going to be in South Africa, and you would be excited to hear that.
Did I hear you correctly, South Africa, sir? And would you like to do the honors and tell us where exactly in South Africa and when?
It is going to be in South Africa, in Johannesburg, from the 7th to the 8th of November. It's created a lot of buzz right here at the World Economic Forum in Davos. And what's going to be unique about it is not just that we want to set up another forum just to talk. In fact, the uniqueness of this Africa Investment Forum is that the only conversation you will have, the only speeches that will be made, is just investment, investment, investment. We're going to bring all the global investors together with the project developers. And then the African Development Bank, working with the World Bank, International Finance Corporation, Inter-American Development Bank, and many others, will create a mutualized risk-sharing facility to de-risk projects at scale and make sure that things happen. And it's going to be a forum where, I'm sorry, the heads of state won't have a chance to actually give speeches, but I'm sure they'll be happy when investments show up in their countries.
So less protocol, more investment, may I say. Just looking at the broader picture for the African Development Bank, one of the areas that you are passionate about is agri-industrialization. How is that agenda going for the African continent?
It's going very well. The thing is, coming back to the issue of infrastructure that we just talked about here, infrastructure is very expensive. So the key is how you invest in infrastructure, where you invest in infrastructure. And you want to invest in infrastructure in a way that it can help you to unlock new sources of growth. And those new sources of growth have to be in areas that can lift millions and millions of people out of poverty. That's what we have to do. And that's why at the African Development Bank, we are pushing now for the establishment of what we call staple crop processing zones. Now, these are vast areas in rural economy, the rural areas, where the African Development Bank, once and others, will invest in critical infrastructure, power, water, roads, and ICT infrastructure. Then we will work with the governments, the ministers of finance, to provide fiscal incentives for the food and agribusinesses in Africa to be located within those zones in the rural economy. Just think about what that does. That's going to create a massive amount of markets for all the agricultural produce in Africa. It's going to make sure that we are not losing what we are producing, because we're losing over 70% of what we produce. It will also create a massive amount of jobs for young people. It will make agriculture cool and sexy, and the rural economy will change from zones of economic misery to zones of economic prosperity. So it's a new way.
That is what they don't want. So I'm calling on African presidents, because this news is just out. They are trying to remove this man from being the president of Africa Development Bank, Mr. ADESINA. None of you will support that. He must be there, because African Development Bank, the people that are supposed to have the mouth is Africans. Even if it's their money, it is called African Development Bank. If they don't want it, they take their money and go. The first shareholder of this bank is a Nigerian, followed by United States of America and other Western world. But we don't mind. We don't mind, because we must stand for this. They need us more than we need them. If we stand for this, that they must not remove this man, we start dictating what happened to us, we start from ourselves, we will change things. Thank you, and God bless you. Tell me what you think. Is it right that in African Development Bank for Africans, that the people dictating who will be there is the foreigners? Let me hear from you. Thank you, and God bless you. Do not forget to put on your notification bell and to subscribe. Also, comment and share this video to get to the important hands and to every African person in the globe, so that together we will start to wake up to solve our problems by ourselves, because it is only us that can save us. Keep being special, keep being real African.